Welcome into the CHGO Blackhawks podcast powered by ComEd. It's getting easier for your business to switch to electric vehicles. Learn more at comed.com/clean. Thanks for being with us here. Short notice. I'm Jay Zawaski with Greg Boysen and Mario Tirabassi. We were planning our day on having a Blackhawks and Sabres pregame show tonight at 6, but the game has been postponed until tomorrow due to inclement weather in Buffalo. Who could expect it? Crazy. So yeah, puck drops tomorrow at 6. We'll have a 5:30 pregame show, and the Hawks sending out a little bit of information actually about the broadcast. It was supposed to be a TNT game, but instead it will be moved to NBC Sports Chicago, and Chris Foster's didn't make the trip because it was a TNT game. They can't get him out there, so it will be Brendan Burke and Darren Pang on the call tonight or tomorrow night for Hawks and Sabres. So a little bit different sound, a little bit of a scramble for everybody. But safety wins out, which is probably, I would think, the right thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's a local travel ban within the area that the Sabres arena is in, basically telling people do not go outside. It is a risk to your health. So yeah, sporting events and all that, that takes a back seat.
Unless it's a Bills playoff game.
Yeah, get some salt, cowards. We're also going to talk to Pete Blackburn in the second half of the show, and we're going to start the show with you're never going to guess. Yep, more Blackhawks injury news. Nikita Zaitsev, who did not return in last night's win over the Sharks for the third period, is now on IR with a right leg injury. Louis Crevier has been recalled. We are still unclear on whether or not Connor Murphy went with the team to Buffalo. I guess we'll learn that at the morning skate tomorrow. But Zaitsev now out for the foreseeable future. So another next man up situation here for the Hawks.
Yep, it's par for the course. This is what this season has been. The season of injuries, and you got to feel bad for Nikita Zaitsev because he's been playing well, and he finally got himself regular spot. Regular playing time and all that, and now the injury comes. So just bad luck continues to strike this Blackhawks locker room.
That's funny. We were just last night talking about, Isaac Phillips and his role and everything. And then, Murphy and Zaitsev, lo and behold, are both not available tonight. Louis Crevier gets called up, probably just as an extra body. But yeah, I mean, if it's not one guy, it's another. And I don't know. The All-Star break seems like it's coming at the right time for everyone to just take some time away, rest up, no travel, no nothing. Like everyone just rehab and be ready to go. Just take some time off.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Luke at this point just has to be like, what am I going to do here? It started to feel like it was turning around, right? Like you get Seth Jones back, and then Foligno, he's supposed to see doctors today. I don't know how that's going to go. We'll probably get an update on that tomorrow as well. That's what he told us when he was on Monday. And then Bedard's on the ice with the fishbowl on, but like, okay, it's a glimmer of hope. And then another guy goes down. And I know that sometimes we downplay Nikita Zaitsev. And look, like last year and the early part of this year, he barely felt like part of the team. But as these injuries came, he got his opportunity. And I don't want to oversell his impact to the team, but he's made the most of his opportunity. He's had power play time, penalty kill time, playing at all strengths. And he's been basically what you want from a bottom pair guy is just do your job. Stay out of trouble. Don't create issues for the goaltender. Don't create issues for your teammates. And for the most part, he's not been perfect, but for the most part, Nikita Zaitsev has done everything he's been asked and probably a little bit more.
Yeah, that's easy to agree with. He's been better than, I want to say, advertised. I think, as we've discussed many times, he's takes a hit because his performance doesn't match the contract. But it wasn't a contract that the Blackhawks signed him to. It was one that benefited them to take on to get more assets. But he's played well, and it's too bad But now, I would assume, Isaac Phillips will get in the lineup tomorrow. It all also depends if Connor Murphy is available or not. I mean, yes, yesterday, Luke Richardson made it seem in the morning that he should be available for Murphy should be available for what would have been tonight's game. And then after the game, all of a sudden it didn't sound so optimistic. We don't know if he traveled with the team or not. I'm guessing if he didn't, they're not gonna get him on a flight to try and get out there in bad weather now. So, so that gets Phillips in there and Crevier. I don't know. We'll see. Friday, now they got to play back to back the other way. Tonight was supposed to be back to back, but now they got to play tomorrow night, and then they got to travel home and play the Islanders on Friday night at home. And maybe Murphy is with the team then. But the good thing that just popped in my head, now that they're going to be traveling back Thursday night, that means likely no morning skate on Friday, which means we don't have to get to the arena till 4:30, which is awesome.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, let me ask you guys a hypothetical here, and we can have a pretend fire drill before real fire drill. What if Louis Crevier plays over Isaac Phillips tomorrow?
I mean,
then that's your answer. That's your answer with where they value him.
Some people may get upset with that, but it is what it is. They would think that. I mean, that just tells me that the organization thinks Crevier is better than Phillips right now, and they may or may not be wrong about that, or right. Who knows? I will trust the two former NHL defensemen's judgment over my own, over people in the chat, over people on the Twitters. I like Isaac Phillips a lot. He's a great kid. I think he's still got potential to be, a third pairing NHL defenseman. He's got the size. He can skate. He's got a little bit of offensive upside. It's starting to feel like the Blackhawks just don't see him being a long-term fit here. And if you had if the cupboard was bare and there were no defensive prospects in the system, it'd probably be a little different. But I think they feel pretty confident in the guys who are coming as quickly as next season. So we'll see what happens. But on the other point, if they were kind of done with him, wouldn't you think they'd be playing him out there as trade showcasing? Hey, we don't think there's a future here. We might try and move you. Go out and play good and get that trade value up, and we'll see what we can do for you. So yeah. It's puzzling.
Yeah, it is a strange situation, and there's been so much going on around the team that the opportunity to ask the question is probably, I'll point the thumb at myself. Maybe we should have asked this a while ago when we've got Luke right in front of us, but you've got Bedard hurt and Foligno hurt and a new deal for Foligno and Dickinson. And there's all this big significant news happening with the team. And you got Lucas Reichel struggling, and you're trying to get these questions in with the time you have. And I think that, again, I'll point the thumb at myself. I've done a poor job of saying, hey, what's your plan with Isaac Phillips here? Because what did I say last night? He hasn't played since the 7th or 9th, whatever it is.
Yeah, the Calgary game.
It's been a long time. Yeah,
and that was the 7th defenseman game where he played 456. So
right. And Mario, were you with us? I lost track of last night's show. Were you with us when we had the Phillips discussion on the post-game show?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to make sure that we got everybody's thoughts out. Everything kind of it all runs together a little bit.
That shootout was a mental strain on all of us.
Yeah, that was a drag. That was a drag for sure. But hey, like we said on the post game, a win's a win, and it's got to feel good for those guys to even though it was ugly. I think we can count on pretty much every game from here on out, and every win being ugly. I don't think we're going to have one of these. They're not going to beat the Avalanche 5-0. That's not happening this year or next year or following year. Maybe the year after that.
Well, at least not for the next 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. The other little bit of news we should get to, and I wrote about this for my Blackhawks beat, which will be out tomorrow on ALLCITY.com. That is exclusive to diehards. And speaking of that, Mario and Greg published their rebuild report as they do every week. That came out today for diehards at ALLCHGO.com. I know Ethan Del Mastro is the cover man on this week's edition. So check that out. And if you're not a diehard, become one. ALLCHGO.com. When you sign up, you get a free shirt or hat upon sign up. You get 20% off all of our events, including United Center takeovers. Some news on that coming soon, very soon. So you're going to want to jump in. It's really a great value. It keeps us going, and you get a lot out of it. It's not just our written content, but it's the merch. It's the merch discounts, the event discounts, access to our Discord. We're going to start being a lot more active on the Discord too. Our Bears show has been doing some live video Q&As on there, and I think we're going to get a couple of those on the calendar here. So now is as good a time as any to become a diehard at allchgo.com. So do that. Anyway, long story short, I'm writing about Petr Mrazek for tomorrow's, and the thought of you've got an extension for Foligno, you've got an extension for Dickinson. Is Petr Mrazek the next natural guy to sign? And we talked about a little bit last night in the post game because Kevin Weeks threw up a tweet kind of right before the game saying there's mutual interest between the Hawks and Mrazek on working out a deal. Since then, I have texted one of my most reliable sources and said, hey, does it make sense that Mrazek is next in line? And that person responded, I don't think so. So I don't really know what to make of that. This is a source that is usually very right and very reliable. It is a team source. Here's the deal. And as I processed that text return, I started thinking, okay, why would the Hawks not want to do this? And as we're going to go around the league with Pete Blackburn here in about 15 minutes, the goalie market around the NHL is really heating up. You've got a lot of teams that are considered contenders with massive goaltending issues. Edmonton's won 11 in a row. That's great. I don't know if they trust their goalies. Toronto doesn't trust their goalies. Colorado isn't having the best year in goal. Like, you can go on and on and on. And the longer this goes, and if Mrazek keeps putting about performances like he has, he's probably Kyle Davidson's biggest trade chip. So, look, there's no rush in extending him. Why not play it out? Why not see what the deadline brings? And then if you decide, all right, third round pick, let's sign him after the deadline. I think that might be what the Hawks are waiting to do.
Yeah, I think that, the goaltending market always seems to shift and change as trade deadline approaches, and injuries and hot streaks all play into it. So you still got a month and a half before you got the trade deadline coming up here, and see how Mrazek goes. He's a guy that you have to consider his health status as the season goes on too. So just kind of seeing if he keeps it up all the way till the beginning of March, and some teams get desperate. Yeah, I mean, you have to be listening to any phone calls that are coming your way if you're Kyle Davidson, and it makes a lot of sense to keep him around if his health continues to be in good standing, and this is the kind of Petr Mrazek we're going to see over the next season or season and a half or whatever it is. Then it makes sense for him to come back and be the go-to guy next season. You have Arvid Soderblom under contract for one more year already. So maybe you just run it back with these two again, and hopefully Soderblom figures something out to where he's a little bit more serviceable. Mrazek keeps it up and it's good to go. If you have a team that their starter just completely, is done for the rest of the year, then you have a desperate team, and then maybe you circle back and say, okay, make it worth your while, and he's available. The only thing I think about with trading Mrazek is then what? Then you finish the season with Soderblom, who you almost can't put in net yet, and Jackson Stauber. Like, I know I know the goal of the season isn't winning, but these guys need some semblance of we're trying to win some games here, right?
Yeah, I agree with being patient. There's no reason to trade him right now, especially if they're not going to extend him. I was just looking up at the pending UFA goalies, so the guy's most likely to get traded, and it ain't good. The guy that might be the top free agent or to be on the trade chip, especially if they keep playing as bad as they've been. Maybe Marc-Andre Fleury gets dealt from Minnesota to a contender. He's far more proven and got a much better postseason track record than Peter Mrazek, but I still think he's going to be here after this season, but maybe they just wait it out. It's smart because, the closer you get to the deadline, the more desperate teams are going to get. So, what do you get in return? What happens if he's traded? Well, maybe if you trade him back to Toronto for, say, you take Ilya Samsonov back so they could clear that space because he's only signed through this season. So then you have Samsonov and Soderblom, which isn't good. But again, it's a veteran that you could put out there.
Sharks, here we come.
Right. So, but I still think Mrazek is going to get an extension here. There's just been too much chatter. Usually where there's this much smoke, there's usually a fire. So I'd be surprised if he's not, but maybe they're waiting to see. And maybe this is one of those trades with Mrazek where they're like, you know what? We've got all this draft capital. We got all of these picks. Maybe this is a guy that you trade instead of for a first or second round draft pick. You trade for one of those like on the fringe AHL prospects that are ready to be an NHL guy that you can put right into the lineup as soon as you get them.
That very much appeals to me. It really does. So let's interesting you mentioned Fleury there, Greg. So Fleury right now is at 2.97 goals against and an 897 save percentage with the Wild. Peter Mrazek has a 3.04 goals against and a 0.907 save percentage. So a better save percentage, which is typically the indicator of how the goalie's playing. Goals against is very usually kind of representative of the team in front of you. I also think that Fleury is going to cost more because of reputation, because of Q rating of the name and those sort of things. I don't know. Here's the thing. Like, if someone offers a first for Peter Mrazek, I'm taking it. Like, I'm not thinking about it. I'm doing it. You'll figure out the goalie in the offseason. You figure out whatever you're going to do here at the NHL level. You sign somebody, you bring somebody in, you make another trade, whatever it might be. Fine. I'm still a little bit like, is Peter Mrazek going to get a first-round pick? Our team's going to get that desperate? And while I do think waiting is going to drive up his value, I also fear waiting is going to put more and more and more strain on that groin. And then maybe you don't have any value at all, which is fine because then you could just re-sign him, bring him back next year and just do what you did for the last two more times. Cool. But this is why I'm glad I'm not a GM because Kyle Davidson's got all these things in his head, plus 50 more that we don't know about. It's like the meme of Zach Galifianakis with the math problems like floating in front of his face. It is a calculus, right? You have to kind of figure out like, okay, pros, cons, what could go wrong? What could be better if we wait? What if, I don't know. There's a lot to unpack there. And I think however it works out, look, if the Hawks get a first round pick for Peter Mrazek, great. If they bring him back, great. They're kind of in a no lose situation here, in my opinion, because he's been good. He's happy here. But as the season goes on and the demand for goalies goes on, he's just going to have more and more value. So they're in a good spot here. They're in a really good spot.
We also have to monitor what's going on in Columbus because, word is Elvis Merzlikins wants out. And that's a guy that, like, a contending team would give up a lot because he's good and he's under control for a while and still pretty young. He's a guy that you can bring in and he could be your goalie for multiple seasons. So you'd have to see how that happens as well. I don't think a first is coming for Peter Mrazek, even if you retain half his salary. I don't see it. But again, never underestimate the stupidity of an NHL GM. Especially one from a Canadian team.
Yeah. Well, there's something to keep in mind too. Like, if a team is trading for Peter Mrazek, it's not going to be a top 15 first. It's going to be a bottom 10, bottom 15 pick because it's going to be a contender trading for him. So with that in mind, though, the second round pick is a lower second round pick, right? It's not a top of the second round unless teams got some draft capital that I haven't gone through all 32 teams and seen exactly where their picks line up. But if you're just going generally speaking, a second round pick from Toronto is going to be somewhere in the 50s or, in the 50s for a draft pick. So it's not as valuable as somewhere in the late 30s, early 40s. So that's again, that's kind of how you have to look at this. It's going to be a late first if it's a first, and a late second if it's a second. And that's why, for me, I'm kind of setting it at a first or bust with the expectation of they're not getting a first.
Right. Or it may not be a first in this year's draft.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can't imagine a team is, if they don't land, a guy like Merzlikins that's on the market, or Fleury, that they're going to be like, all right, then let's unload this trade package to get Petr Mrazek. Like they might just look at it and say it's not worth it to bring in a guy who is maybe league average at best. Like you'd want to do something like that for a guy that's going to be a difference maker. That's how a contender is gonna think. And on Mrazek's side of things, I know he doesn't have trade protection, but like there could be a sense of like, this is a guy that's bounced around from a lot of teams in the last couple of years. I think if there's any chance that he could have an opportunity to be like, all right, another few years in Chicago or whatever it is, like I think that may end up being a little bit more, look a little bit more of a value to him than to bounce around again. So I mean, it could be motivation to say to get a deal done and say like, I want some stability in my life, rather than bounce around and try and go from contender to contender or whatever like that.
Well, look, it looks like, you hear from Foligno and you hear from Dickinson, and both guys have kind of expressed like, we want to be like, Dickinson's upset his deal isn't, not upset, but he was hoping to get more years because he wants to be here, because he believes in what's happening here, and he believes that on the other side of those 2 years or whatever it is, when they finally like start the upward trajectory towards the playoffs, he wants to be here for that. So these guys, they believe in what's happening here, and to me, more than wins and losses, more than individual performances on the ice, more than those sort of things, when you have NHL veterans who have been contenders before, look at this team who struggled against San Jose, who have lost before that game several games in a row, and are second to worst in the league, and say, yeah, I want to be part of this. That to me gives me more faith in what's happening than anything else, than any of the day-to-day like minutia, performances, games, wins, losses. The fact that these guys want to be here, and look, the cynic will say, well, the Hawks are paying them probably $1 million more than anybody else would, which is valid, fine. And of course, when asked, they're not going to say, well, they gave me $1 million more than anybody else. But I do truly get a sense that Dickinson and Foligno want to be here. It was important for them to be here and see this thing out, or at least see it to the next step, and like then hand it off. Like, okay, there you go, Frank Nazar. There you go, Alvar Moore. We can't teach you anymore. Take it on your own. They want to be here, and that to me is a really positive sign about what's happening in the org.
Yeah, well, I mean, Foligno's a guy that's got, I'd say, no disrespect, but less hockey left in him than Jason Dickinson. So I can understand why Dickinson would be like, hey, if I'm going to be here and help this next group come through, I want to also be here when that group arrives, because in theory, when that group arrives, it's going to be a lot of fun to be playing in Chicago. So I'd want to be sticking around for that. So if he keeps up what he's been doing this season, and the way that he's played in his time here, I wouldn't be surprised if another extension in 2 years' time could be in his in his future. And for Foligno, I mean, it's a leadership role. He seems like he's a pretty prideful guy in that kind of aspect. So, if he can finish his career and say, I was part of what laid the foundation for Bedard and Korchinski, and name the guys down the list to eventually elevate the Blackhawks back to Stanley Cup championships or whatever. Like that's a kind of a cool feather in his hat.
Yeah. Definitely.
I think Jason Dickinson might have to fight off Reese Johnson for future captaincy.
Fun times, good times. All right, we got a super chat before we take our first break. It is from Brandon, who says, can shootouts be like innings in baseball? They kind of are. Yeah, you get the top or the bottom, and then it ends when you either score or don't. It kind of works out like maybe I'm missing.
Maybe it could it be a set number of shooters, and no matter how the score goes at the end of the 5 shooters or whatever the score is dictates it. Like let's say, the first let's say it's 5 shooters. The first 2 score, and then the third ones don't score. Well, in that case, then the game would be over and in standard rules. But if you say, well, you got to go the extra 5, then the team that scored twice maybe gets stopped the next 2 times. And then the team that didn't score scores in the 4th and 5th round. So then it's 2-2 at the end of 5. And then you go to sudden death. Like there could be a situation like that.
And then if it ends, they just go to the blue lines to determine it.
Yes, exactly. That is the most sophisticated way to decide anything.
You know what? I think the NHL should do everything they can to make it as complicated as possible. I think that's the
They're doing a good job. They're doing a very good job. We don't even know what offsides is anymore, so they've done a pretty good job on that.
Exactly. All right, Brandon, thank you for the super chat.
If you're gonna have shootouts, like at least make them a little bit more ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of ridiculous, this is a bad segue. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL playoffs, is bringing you an offer that will help make the playoffs electrifying. Thunder sound effect. New customers can bet $5 on any game and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. All right, here's what we're looking at. I told you last week, not only were the Packers going to cover 7.5, but they were going to beat the damn crap-ass Dallas Cowboys, and I was right. Nothing is quite that appealing to me this week on DraftKings, but the Chiefs are getting 2.5 against the Bills. I know the game's in Buffalo, but last I checked, they're still the Chiefs, plus 2.5. And if you parlay that with the over of 45, you win $35 on a $10 bet. You'd win $350 on a $100 bet. See how that works? And on and on and on and so on and so on. So lay that one down. I like that one. I like the Chiefs to win the game. But you can't parlay the spread and the money line. I learned that today as I was trying to do that. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use that code CHGO. New customers can bet just $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code CHGO. The crown is yours. All right, here we go. I can do this. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus specs expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/football for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources.
33 seconds.
Is that a record?
No.
Yeah. Oh, I thought 34 was the record.
32.5 is my record.
Okay. You were that close then.
They didn't
32
type out the letters. Type out the words. SEBEN.
We'll
Very confusing.
Speaking of that Chiefs-Bills game, one of the weirdest stats, or at least it was weird to me, this will be Patrick Mahomes' first road playoff game in his entire career.
Good. That's crazy.
Blows my mind.
He's played neutral site games because of Super Bowls, but he's never played as a road game in the playoffs in his entire career.
That's like Steven in a public bathroom. No road games for Steven.
He's not the only one.
Field only, guys. That's it.
He's the Patrick Mahomes of pooping. All right. What's more fun than winning money while watching sports is watching sports in person.
Yes.
And you could take that money you win over at DraftKings and switch it on over to Game Time to get tickets to all your favorite sporting events, concerts, comedy, and theater events near you. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time is fast and it's easy for all the events you want to go to with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. They also have this cool thing is if you're going, like say you're going on a road game for the first time and you've never been to this arena or stadium or theater and you want to know what you can see from the seats, well, they have the view from the seat option. No matter what your seat is, no matter what venue, you're going to be able to get a look at exactly what your view is going to be before you buy your ticket. Plus, they offer you the low price guarantee. Say you buy a ticket to Friday night's Blackhawks game against the Islanders, just throwing that out there. And then you find it on another ticket site for cheaper, let them know and they will match that price for you and refund you the difference. They're obsessed with finding you ways to save money on tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CHGO for $20 off your very first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code CHGO for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
All right, let's go out to the guest line. I don't know what you call it. Guest screen. And bring in our buddy Pete Blackburn. We're bummed to not see you, man. You're in town, and the Buffalo Sabres and their weather system come screw everything up. So we got to do everything virtually. But thanks for being with us. Thanks for adjusting on the fly. We appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. I saw some of the guys yesterday. And I've been in the CHGO office probably more than they want me to be there for this week. So
yeah, they don't like hockey guys there.
Yeah, we're learning that the hard way. But make sure you're following Pete on Twitter at Pete Blackburn and What Chaos Show on Twitter. And go to YouTube and follow the What Chaos Show. It's great. They do a ton of great features outside the show, and they've got long form interviews on there. Really enjoyed yesterday's conversation with Sean Dursey. Really good stuff. And I say it every time we have you on, Pete. You guys have this knack for getting the least open athletes of any sport to open up and play along with you guys. And I think Sean Dursey did it better than pretty much anyone you've had so far.
Yeah, I particularly enjoyed the journey of the Sean Dursey interview because the first question, he totally didn't understand what was happening and was not playing the game. He was trying to give a professional, serious answer to an intentionally dumb question that made no sense whatsoever. And it was painful for 10 seconds trying to watch him labor through it and do mental gymnastics. But by the end of it, he played the game more than any other guest that we've had. So it was a lot of fun.
Well, you were in the building last night. You got to witness that amazingly memorable shootout, all 9 rounds of glory. Man, I mean, would you like to relive your favorite moment of the first round of the Celebrini Cup last night?
I had to be Jason Dickinson's shootout goal, or not goal, very close to being a goal, but off the post, off the back of the goaltender. Looks like it has a ton of steam heading into the back of the net and then somehow just stops on the goal line. It's an incredible moment. If that's not an encapsulation of what that game was, I don't know what is, because it was an experience. It was not necessarily the best or most entertaining game that I've ever seen in my life, but it was an experience. And there was it's not like nothing happened. It was just not the pinnacle of NHL hockey. I'll say that.
Yeah, we wanted fun bad, not bad, which is what we got.
Also, the building was. I've been to a handful of Blackhawks games this year, and the building was dead last night, and it may have had something to do with the teams playing. May have had something to do with the weather outside. The biggest pop of the night, I believe, was them announcing that it had hit 3 degrees for the first time in 36 hours, and the crowd went nuts.
Yeah, surprisingly dead UC crowd last night, but there was one instance right before, right at the end of the third period. I think the Blackhawks had an offensive zone draw, and they played jump around, and not a person moved out of their seat. And I was like, "You guys know what this song is supposed to do, right?"
That's also
yeah,
it
was
read the room kind of moment from the music staff at the UC. It's I appreciate the effort, but maybe not the time and place. Although they did crush it with Mario. I think you put out the video of the Tony Hawk at intermission. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah,
incredible move.
Yeah, that caught my eye. I think they were doing a whole rotation of N64 games during the intermission, which was pretty fun. But Yeah. I mean that the game last night was kind of like that is what you expect when it's number 31 taking on number 32. Like it can't end beautifully and quickly, and the highlights are not going to be, NHL worthy. It was the Macklin Celebrini Bowl for sure.
Yeah, and like I mean, another layer of depression there. Like obviously it would have been kind of different. I'm sure the crowd would have been a little bit better if Bedard was playing, but no Bedard in the Celebrini Bowl is in like 0-degree weather. Good luck trying to draw.
Yeah, it's funny. They've actually the crowds have been okay since he's went down, kind of surprisingly, but I think it was just a perfect storm of bad opponent, too cold, and I'm noticing now, maybe it's just that I'm older, but like consecutive freezing days just wear my ass out. Like yesterday, I could have slept all day. But Pete, we started the show, and I know we're going to go around the league, and we will. But we started the show talking about Petr Mrazek, and you saw what may have been his best performance of the year last night, and we're trying to kind of gauge, okay, what should the Hawks do with him? They just re-signed Foligno, they just re-signed Dickinson. Their top goalie prospects are at least probably 2 years away. Does it make sense to bring him back, or do you take a look around the league and look at all the goaltending issues teams are having and say, hey, maybe this is someone we could flip? From an outsider's perspective, where do you think Petr Mrazek falls into the potentially available goalies for contenders conversation?
Well, I mean, he's winning games for a team that probably shouldn't be trying to win games right now. And I saw Petr Mrazek shutout last time that I was in Chicago. So I saw 5 straight periods of Chicago Blackhawks hockey in which they did not allow a goal, which I tweeted last night. I was like, this is a miracle of outstanding proportions. So yeah, like the goaltending situation around the league right now is extremely interesting and intriguing to me, because it does feel like we're just waiting for the first shoe to drop or the first domino to be pushed over, because there are a number of guys who could be moved to a bunch of teams that absolutely need help in net. And you're talking about teams like the Colorado Avalanche, who are running out Georgiev every single night. Like a Petr Mrazek and an Avalanche.
All-star Georgiev, please.
I'm sorry. You're right. You guys are right. He's definitely an all-star. And then you've got like obviously the Leafs. You've got the New Jersey Devils. You're probably looking at a team like the Edmonton Oilers, who Stuart Skinner's been playing well recently, but they'll probably need at least a little bit of insurance. So, the goaltending market is there, and I think Petr Mrazek would be a really interesting guy to move, and it would make sense for the Blackhawks to move him as a team that probably isn't going to be wanting to win games right now.
Yeah, I wouldn't rule out the LA Kings out of the goalie conversation here, because I think they've Cam Talbot is kind of puttering right now as that team is going in the wrong direction. But speaking of the Oilers and the Maple Leafs, we because we were watching the Celebrini Cup last night, we got to miss that Oilers Maple Leafs, pretty much exactly what you would expect out of those two teams. I remember looking down at the score in the press box going, oh, Maple Leafs are up 2-0. They're totally losing this game. And sure enough, they did. So, man, what were your thoughts on that? Really entertaining night.
I mean, I was in the building with you guys, so I didn't get to watch it, but it screams one of those games where you can look at the box score and know exactly what happened, because like you mentioned, it kind of fits the bill for both of those teams right now. We talked about it this morning on What Chaos. It's just like the fact that this keeps happening to the Leafs in like basically every game that they've been playing recently is extremely concerning, but also extremely unsurprising. It's just this team is always fits the same bill to me. It's a team that has a ton of talent, a team that the talent plays well for good runs, but also like a team that can't fully put together consistent efforts, whether it's from game to game or whether it's period to period. This is not a team that has the killer instinct that puts them over the top to be taken seriously. They have some issues on the back end that, like, all of these things always exist for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And the biggest problem for all of that is you look at the quotes and some of the things that get picked apart after the fact, and it's like, we're not that worried about it. We're not that frustrated. We feel like we're playing pretty good hockey. That's not what anybody wants to hear in Toronto after you blow another multi-goal lead. Like a guy like Mitch Marner, who has been there, who is a nice Ontario boy, knows exactly how this works, how the Toronto Maple Leafs media machine works. How do you continue to get in front of a camera and be like, we're playing some pretty good hockey. I think we're going to be fine. Nobody wants to hear that right now.
It's just been probably beaten into them just to be like, no, everything's fine. It's fine. We're good. We're really good hockey players. It's fine. Like,
Right.
It'll all work out eventually.
Will it though? Does it ever? No, probably not.
No,
Hey, they got
it
to the
doesn't.
second round last year.
Well, I mean, it doesn't. Look, these guys have been giving it to me all year because I actually thought that the moves they made this offseason to bring in some dudes with a little bit of fire and passion, as we call it in Chicago, and Domi and Bertuzzi, and to a lesser extent Ryan Reeves, might actually like help in that regard, bring some swagger along. And it's been the same story. Like, what can this team do to? Like, how can Toronto fix this? I mean, they've been asking the question since what, 1960? What's the last cup? 7, yeah.
7.
Like, but it's the same story every year. Is it the laundry? Is it literally, so you pull the Toronto jersey on and you become an idiot? I don't understand how it works.
I mean, like, I do think it sounds ridiculous, but I do think there's something to, like, sometimes it's just in the DNA, man. Sometimes there's something in the stitching of those sweaters. Like, I know the Dallas Cowboys are a team that has won Super Bowls and had like an incredible run, but like, you look at what happened to them this weekend, it's kind of inexplicable, where it's like, how did they just forget how to play football? And like, everything was going right. This was the most talented roster that the Cowboys had seen in quite a long time. But like, you turn on the lights and that team just shrivels and goes away. And the Leafs are obviously, I would say like the Cowboys are like the Maple Leafs of the NFL at this point. And, I don't know what the solution is. Obviously, like, they can help themselves by getting more saves, by playing a little bit more structured defensively, and not, cowering when you get a multi-goal lead. And so, like, obviously, like, the biggest thing is you need the saves. And you look at a team like, even like the Kraken, the Winnipeg Jets, the Edmonton Oilers, like, those teams. Those are the top 3 teams in goaltending over the last month or so. Like, the Kraken went on a 9-game win streak. The Oilers have won 11 straight. The Winnipeg Jets are like, I think they're still the best team in the league right now in the standings. Like, if you are getting saves, you're going to win no matter what is happening basically in front of you. I think that's the number one rule of the NHL. And so, like, the Leafs could do themselves a big favor by finding an answer in that. And it's a hard thing to do right now.
Yeah, the irony of the Maple Leafs giving the Blackhawks a first-round pick to bring back Petr Mrazek after they gave the Blackhawks a first-round pick to get rid of Petr Mrazek would just be, it would be delicious.
That would be incredible. It would truly be incredible.
Well, the Hawks have they got Buffalo tomorrow, and then it is the Kraken, and then the Canucks. And I want to sort of get your take on the team that just gave up the chaos chain, unfortunately, the Seattle Kraken, who you mentioned 9 in a row. Then they've lost their last 2. This is a team that I think a lot of hockey fans kind of struggle to figure out. Like, they don't have any real star power, like, all respect to Oliver Bjorkstrand, all-star, reluctant all-star Oliver Bjorkstrand. But they're deep, and they've got 4 good lines and 3 good pairs and decent goaltending. What do you make of the Kraken? Is this a team that can contend, or are they just kind of mid? Are they like the Predators and the just kind of middle of the league, just kind of float where they are?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're like kind of mid, but also like mid with a ceiling of, wow, they're outperforming their kind of talent level, because like you mentioned, they've proven that they're a team that can roll 4 lines and they can play a strong 200-foot game. But, again, and I hate to go back to it all the time, but like, the difference between the Seattle Kraken, when you are getting the saves and getting decent goaltending, versus a team that team has been on both sides of the spectrum, where, like, do I expect Joey Daccord to be like the best goaltender in the world for an extended period of time? No, but if he can be a good goaltender and if they can get the saves, I think that's a team that like could be on the line of being a playoff team. But we've also seen the Kraken be a team that has like a Philip Grubauer in net who like didn't work out, and they were struggling to find any answers in net. and they were horrible. So like that one factor can make a strong difference. But like as far as the kind of like the that team structure, I like it. I just think that they need better players in terms of star power and guys that can kind of take over games. But they are a team that doesn't relent in terms of like their forechecking and their 200-foot game, and just like they come to play every night. It's just they're a little bit away in terms of roster building.
Yeah, I when I think about them, I at their best, I feel like they could be, you look at some teams that have had success without a lot of the marquee names, but just kind of like team success. Like I think about the Blues in 2019, like they had Ryan
Thanks, man. I
O'Reilly.
appreciate it.
Yeah, well, it happens.
Yeah.
But they had some good players, but no one that was like elite level, put you over the top, like arguably one of the best of their position.
I would disagree. I think Ryan O'Reilly on that team was like, once he started playing, he was dominant during that playoff run. And like, if you have a Ryan O'Reilly who can really kind of choke out the other team's best players and best lines and neutralize them, it's one of the biggest things that you need as a playoff team. I think Ryan O'Reilly was like an elite center during that run.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, in that run, sure, I wouldn't disagree with that, but like, I just think like the superstar level of things, sometimes if you have just like that depth across the board, like it can take you where you need to go, and I mean, I don't think Seattle, like you said, I don't think Seattle's actually at that point, but they're made up to where it's just like there probably isn't a lot of like high ceiling players, but there probably isn't a lot of places where you're like, oh, they're bottom of the barrel at this. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what they end up doing this season.
I like those style of teams though too, where it's like, okay, you're not blowing anybody away on paper, but you're buying into the system and you're buying into just being as competitive and as tense as you can possibly be, and you're just grinding out wins. And like that's one of my favorite teams to watch. And like honestly, like the Winnipeg Jets do have a lot of talent, but they seem to be one of those teams too. And I've really liked kind of the turnaround as far as the Jets' identity from previous years into what they are this year, which is a very responsible defensive team, because they were never that. They were always the team that was leaving Connor Hellebuck out to dry, and he was always having to kind of make up for what they lacked in terms of what they had in front of him. And now, like, they're playing responsible defensive hockey for Rick Bowness, and Connor Hellebuck is like, all right, cool. Now I'll show you exactly how good I can be, which is the best goaltender in the world.
What's good, I mean, from the Jets' perspective, you're right, and it took them forever to do that. Now that they bought in and they've seen the results, they're like, oh, okay, this is what it is. I get it here. And going back to the Kraken real quick too, like what you described is the way that team is made and the way that team plays, aside from what Vegas did and became awesome right away, for an expansion team in a new market to play that style night after night after night, that is how you get a fan base to fall in love with you and to buy in and to love going to games. And I think a little bit of that, David and Goliath feel that the Kraken have a little bit of, we don't have a superstar, but we're going to grind your ass for 60 minutes and you typically walk away with 2 points. That's huge for the growth of that team in that market. And I think that that shouldn't be overlooked, because I think people think of Seattle as West Coasty. When you look at their teams, like the Seahawks in their heyday were defensive and strong, and like that was the identity of that team and therefore the city. And I could really see this identity of the Kraken really growing on the people of Seattle, who, look, they haven't had any problem buying in, but I think it's the perfect kind of way to introduce a city to a town, or a team to a town, rather.
Yeah, I agree. And like on the flip side, like you look at a team like I believe the Blackhawks playing tomorrow, the Buffalo Sabres, like that's a team where the fans are pissed because there is the talent there, and it's just like the opposite situation exists where like It doesn't seem like they're well coached. It doesn't seem like they have the structure that you need. It doesn't seem like that effort and sort of that grinded out mentality and that intensity is there on every given night. And that's how you lose fans. Like that's how you lose fans being like, I've had enough of these guys. You got to get it together.
Well, I've been looking at the Sabres as like kind of a cautionary tale. As you know, the three of us, we cover the Hawks 5 days a week, and we're all on board with how the rebuild has gone, right? Like, okay, he's sticking to it. Kyle Davidson's sticking to it. He is not straying. He's not getting excited and going sign big free agents to stray from the plan because he got Bedard. But the Sabres are kind of say, like, just because your prospects hit and just because you get these draft lottery wins, it doesn't guarantee you anything. And I think like we have to kind of caution Hawks fans and ourselves, quite frankly, that just because the rebuild going well doesn't guarantee it's going to end up in anything hardware wise, right? You've got to actually do it before any of that happens.
Yeah. And I also look at a team like the Columbus Blue Jackets where you can't really have a lot of confidence with the Blue Jackets right now. I mean, the roster's not great. Like they have some bright spots on the roster, and there is some talent that you can look forward to. But I mean, the coaching isn't there. The coaching would just drive me crazy if I was a Blue Jackets fan. So honestly, like I know things are bad right now in Chicago, but at least you're not Columbus.
No, that's always true.
Gonna put
We're
a
not
banner up for
Ohio.
that.
Yeah.
What the advantage the Hawks have, though. Oh, sorry, Greg. Just real quick. The advantage the Hawks have, though, is it's a free agent destination, where Buffalo and Columbus are not. You know.
Yeah, I mean
they can fill holes with free agents.
It's not like a premier destination, no. But like I do think like we talked to some guys with the Blue Jackets, and you know we did kind of come away with an interesting takeaway. Like some of those guys just like don't want the quote unquote premier destination, and like it's not necessarily a bad thing all the time. It's just, you know, you don't want to be recognized at the grocery store or whatever. That's a normal thing for a guy. It doesn't mean that you're not, you know, giving your all in between the whistles or whatever. And like, it doesn't mean you're not a true competitor or whatever if you don't want to play for a big market team. Some guys just want the smaller markets.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Johnny Gaudreau, obviously. But we just talked about Ryan O'Reilly. You know, he could have gone a lot of places, stayed in Toronto, but he decided to go to Nashville because, you know, it's a lot less pressure being in Nashville. But Columbus, it just seems that every week we have to talk about them because there's always something. You know, now Elvis Merzlikins reportedly wants out, and now you mentioned the coaching. Adam Fantilli will be moved to the wing. You know, because you have to make room for Boone Jenner. You couldn't possibly that's got to be a complete burn down from top to bottom this summer, right?
No disrespect to Boone Jenner, but I've never been more sick of anybody who I don't have like any strong feelings towards. I don't understand the love affair with Boone Jenner in Columbus, and like I'm sure there's a reason for it. I don't know him from a hole in the wall to take the words out of John Tortorella's mouth. But like the fact that he's being sent to the All-Star game, the fact that you're moving Adam Fantilli, who is the future of your franchise, and like to accommodate Boone Jenner drives me insane. Kirill Marchenko should be the representative for the Blue Jackets going to the All-Star game, not Boone Jenner. And it drives me insane that for some reason, like I don't know if Boone Jenner has like blackmail material on every single person in the Blue Jackets organization, or if they just love him that much. But it's driving me crazy.
Oh, that's fair. And we want to get one more thing from you before we let you go. And you've been really generous with your time, Pete. Thank you. The All-Star jerseys. And since I've seen these, I have come to the realization that I probably should not chime in because when they sat around the marketing table, they didn't say, what does a fat 46-year-old hockey fan want to see in an All-Star jersey? So I understand these are not for me, but these aren't great. These are from FLAteamshop.com, which from what I can gather is like a Panthers, owned shop. And here are the Bobrovsky and Reinhart jerseys with the name font plate underneath the number is that Times New Roman lowercase. It looks, I'm sorry. Explain this to me as a young person. Please help me understand this, Pete.
not that young, but so my take on these is that they're awful and I love them. Like they're awful and I love them. And yeah, like they're ridiculous. But I mean, I have a show called What Chaos. These are the most chaotic All-Star jerseys that you could ever put together. It feels like they're ridiculous. I think the thing that I like most about them is that they're being worn in an All-Star game in Toronto. So you know that like the sort of like the fanfare around the All-Star game in Toronto is going to be based out of in like in tradition, in the history of Toronto. Like there's going to be like all these things where they honor like the old Maple Leafs teams and stuff like that. And then you're going to have these things rolled out and it's going to be ridiculous. And so like the All-Star game is not meant to be taken seriously in my mind. So let's get as crazy as we possibly can. I can't wait to wear one of these jerseys. I'm going to buy one for sure.
I go ahead, Mario.
I was just gonna say the fact that you absolutely had to get Justin Bieber involved with it because it's Toronto. It's just like, oh, what do you expect? But it's just not for me. But it is for a demographic that the NHL cannot figure out how to attract, and that is the young audience, the influential audience. You have the older generation of hockey fans hooked. It's getting the new generation hooked on it because it's now it's a different game. Like, it's different than, having fans that loved hockey in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s stuff that where, the hits and the fights and the physicality and the personality was a lot different than it is now, that how the game is marketed. So, the game is shifting towards, let's market these super high skilled guys, try and bring their personalities out and connect it with what is trending of the time period. So I appreciate the NHL's effort to tap into that demographic and basically say, yeah, last year we did the kind of classic looking stuff. Now, so you got your bone. Now we're gonna go to the young kids and try and make some waves there.
Yeah, I agree. Like I think that's the right take. They're not for you guys. They're not necessarily for me either. And it's not a bad thing. Like you don't have to like it. And again, I don't think that anybody's gonna like lose sleep over a bad All-Star game jersey, but it does have the option of appealing to a younger audience that may not otherwise be interested in this game, and it has wearability outside of the All-Star game. Like this might be a cool thing to wear for people who don't necessarily care about hockey, and I think that's big. And it certainly beats having a boring All-Star game jersey that nobody cares about whether you like hockey or not. Like that's the worst possible scenario here, and so I appreciate the swing.
Well, we're talking about it, and that's what they want, and the first thing I did when I saw these was I went to Sean DePaz's Mr. PWHL himself. Like, what does Sean think of these? Because I think that's who they're looking at.
Yeah.
People like Sean, the Whatcast producer,
he loves
Sean
them.
DePaz. Yeah, and I think his single tweet was fire. I'm like, okay, all right, it worked. They got who they wanted.
Our text chain when these were released was hilarious because like right as they were released, we were like, oh my God, these are insane. Not necessarily a complimentary or derogatory way, just
we just lost Pete mid thought. I think Pete's head exploded when he started talking about the jerseys. We are running late anyway, so we'll just let Pete go on that note, which is kind of perfect that he froze like this. It's just an absolute.
His computer exploded.
I actually like the jerseys. I've come around to them. The only one I don't like is the yellow one because the logo is yellow and the designs on the sleeve is yellow.
On the yellow, yeah.
You lose some of that. I would have gone with like a green or a black to kind of make the yellow pop a little more. But I like them because listen, hockey fans hate everything. Anything new, anything different. Hockey fans can't wait to shit on it. So they knew no matter what they did was going to be hated. So go ridiculous, and that's what they did, and I applaud them for that.
I'm sure they're going to look good on the players on the ice, all as a put together kit.
I love the blue ones. If I can get a Bedard in the blue one, I might just do that.
Hey, you know what?
Well, if the Panthers are, I guess How would they? Because it's still
It's a
divvied out
draft.
by division, right, or
Yeah,
by
we don't
draft?
know.
It's a
By draft,
draft.
yeah.
So I think that's probably just a teaser of what it's going to look like, as opposed
Right,
to
yeah.
those are the ones they're going to wear.
Yeah, because the
Right.
Panthers are I actually looked at several teams' like shops, and they're the only team that had like player name on the jersey that I could find. I was really looking hard for a Bedard one to see if they're even making them, because I know I heard Pete mention last week that he tried to get maybe it wasn't Pete, maybe it was whoever it was, somebody on Whatcast was saying they want to get a Tage Thompson All-Star jersey last year, but because he didn't play, they wouldn't make it.
They didn't make it.
So
Yeah.
we'll see. It's going to be interesting. But look, like we said, we're talking about it, which is good. Even though they're not for me, I'm glad they're taking a swing, and I'm glad they're doing something somewhat different and risky, and something that some people are going to hate and some people are going to love. Good. Good.
Yeah,
It's
they're
good
not the
for
best
the league.
ones. They're not the best, but they are far from the worst ones we've ever seen.
Yeah.
Well, look, if you tie yourself to something that's hip and trendy with the youths, you can expect to have like a lot of brand recognition. Like so getting something that is like got the Justin Bieber like brand on it. I mean, the Leafs did that with I don't even know. I don't even remember what the brand's called, but they had those jerseys where it was like reversible, and on one side it was like the black and blue Leafs jersey, and then you flip it over and it's the black and yellow one, I think it was, and it was like the Leafs logo, but with like Justin Bieber's like brand logo on it. Like that's like a status symbol thing. I always think of like the brand Supreme. What is it? I don't know. It's just slapped on everything that every kid wanted or owned, or all these sweaters or hoodies. I have no idea what it is. At least I know what Prime is. It's a drink, you know. But Supreme was just like it was a bumper sticker, but it was just everywhere, and people were like, I want that $400 Supreme hoodie. I don't know what it is, but I want it. Like if the NHL can tap into that even just a little bit, like that's from a marketing standpoint, that's a good strategy.
Yep. It worked exactly how they wanted it to. That's true. All right, we are running late, so let's wrap up the show. But first, we got to tell you that it's getting easier for businesses to switch to electric vehicles. That's something we can all get behind for the health of the planet and for the well-being of all of us who share it.
Sure is. The electric grid is evolving to meet all of our cleaner energy needs as we move with confidence towards an electric tomorrow. Whether you have one delivery van or an entire fleet of shipping trucks, ComEd can guide you to make the changes that make the most sense.
So what should business owners do, Mario?
If you own a business, you should go to ComEd.com/clean to learn more about the resources, fleet rebates, and infrastructure incentives available to help businesses go electric. If you own a business, don't wait. Start making your plan today to switch to electric vehicles. Good for business, good for the planet, good for all of us. Go to ComEd.com/clean.
Did you say ComEd.com/filthy, covered in soot and dirty snow and salt and everything? Is that what you said? ComEd.com/that?
Well, I'm glad that you went with soot and snow. I thought you were going somewhere else. But yes,
Nope.
It is ComEd.com/clean. Squeaky clean.
That makes more sense. Go there now and see how going electric connects us to a better way of doing business and a better future for generations to come. Sorry, Mario, I stole your bid. All right, we are back tomorrow with the 5:30 pregame.
Wait, no,
show.
we're not done yet.
Damn it!
Jesus, Jay, got somewhere to be? Are you? Is
I'm
your
just
electric vehicle
thrown off. The whole day
is your
I'm thrown
electric
off. I
vehicle
had a
double
whole day
parked
thing.
outside? All right. Well, we got the perfect segue from electric vehicles to new vehicle. Because if you are, we have some great news for you. Our partner Ray Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram in Fox Lake is starting their Ray Resolution with Start Something New sales event. And you know what that means? Well, if not, I'm going to tell you. You'll be able to shop incredible savings on every new vehicle in stock because they want to clear the lot to make room for the brand new 2024 vehicles. For a limited time, get up to $9,000 off new Jeep models with dealer discount. And that's not all. Shop their last call and remaining 2023 Dodge Challenger and Charger models, including Hellcats, Scat Packs, that's a little scary, and more. Dodge will be the most powerful muscle car. Dodge is the most powerful muscle car brand, and you don't want to miss out on their last call with over 20 Dodge muscle cars to choose from. Get them muscles. At Ray Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram, you'll always be able to shop one of Chicagoland's largest inventories and drive home with more money in your pocket than you'd expect, thanks to Ray's price promise. Don't miss out. Shop great deals all month long and save big because Ray Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and
Ram
makes buying a new vehicle more affordable than ever. Fans can get a free oil change when you mention CHGO at the service center or mention CHGO when you book at line at raycdjr.com/service. But you have to schedule before January 31st. So if you're in the market for a new vehicle, you have to check out the team at Ray Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and
Ram.
Because they're the only team we recommend. Visit them on Route 12 in Fox Lake or at raycdjr.com, serving the community since 1963. Okay, now we can go.
All right, but wait. Missed opportunity here. And I know you text with Ray all the time, Greg. Why not call it a resolution?
Probably because probably because when that was brought up in the marketing meeting, there was a collective groan.
Fair.
Or maybe Ray LaMontagne has that copyrighted and they couldn't use it.
That could be too.
Maybe he could.
That's the name of his new album, I think.
Resolution. All right. We are back. Wait. Come on. Now what?
So I just wanted to get to this because I think it's gonna be fascinating television tonight. Michael points out. So the game was supposed to be on TNT, Sabres and Blackhawks tonight. Now it's been moved. It's no longer going to be on TNT. But what are they going to do with the TNT crew that's in Buffalo? Or not in Buffalo, but what are they going to do for that time? Well, apparently, Liam McHugh, Paul Bissonnette, Henrik Lundqvist, and Anson Carter are going to do the entire broadcast, pregame, intermissions, play-by-play, and postgame for whatever the TNT game is tonight. I forget which game it was. Red Wings and Panthers. So the entire studio crew is going to do the entire broadcast.
3 hours of Paul Bissonnette. No thanks.
That is going to be fascinating.
No Patrick Kane, by the way. He's injured.
Oh well. Yeah. That sucks for him. I just find like that is going to be so interesting because one, you were not prepped to do that. And now I feel like it could either be awful crap, like Greg says, or it's just going to be a really interesting, like, sit and hang with these guys talking about the game. And yeah, I mean, are you going to get it beautiful play-by-play? Probably not. But like, it could be like a really interesting experience for the broadcast.
Yeah,
I'm interested. I'll just say that like TNT, they do things pretty well. I think they're going to find a way to make this work and make it pretty entertaining. Because say what you want about all the members of the crew, I like most of them. They all know how to broadcast and they all know how to be entertaining. So it should be fun. I'll check in on it for a little while.
I can't wait for Paul Bissonnette to keep saying "we" and "us" when talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs, like he's a former member of that team or ever worked for that organization. What a putz.
Fair enough. All right, we're back tomorrow with a 5:30 pregame, 6 o'clock puck drop in Buffalo, and then we'll talk to you after the game. Make sure on your way out, you please smash that like button for us, and make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube page as well. Same deal on your podcast apps. Subscribe, follow, whatever, and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Thanks to Steven for getting the show put together on short notice. We appreciate that. Thanks to Pete Blackburn for joining the show. Make sure you follow him and What Chaos on all their socials, and especially What Chaos on YouTube. Go there, hit subscribe for them. It would be very, very helpful to them and to our entire company. So go ahead and do that, and we'll talk to you tomorrow at 5:30 on the pregame show on the CHGO Blackhawks podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.